Hello and welcome friends. In this session on communication mix, we will move over to the next steps in the process of designing the communication message, right? As far as the discussion till date is concerned, we started off with a discussion on what is the process of marketing communication and what are the elements of effective communication. Then we talked about the various communication platforms. We'll be discussing these platforms in little more detail later on in this very unit. We also talked about the various steps involved in developing an effective communication campaign. And among these steps, you would recall that we have already discussed identifying the target audience and determining the communication objective. And the last session was about the message designing step 3, in which we basically designed the message. We talked about the structure, format, source. So this was what we had discussed in the last session. I have received one feedback from a few students, and they told me that the last lecture was a little too long. It was probably almost 54 minutes long. So the feedback that I have received is that you should try and restrict your lecture to around 25 to 30 minutes. So that is what I am going to try from this session onward. However, this would probably require a little bit of change in the lecture plan that I have already sent you across. So what I'll be doing is I'll be making the changes in the lesson plan, and then I'll be adhering to the 25 to 30 minutes time limit. Is this fine with you? So let us start off, and we'll start observing this 30-minute rule from this session onwards. Fine. So this was what we have discussed already. Now we are moving on to the fourth step, wherein we have to decide the communication channel, wherein we have to finalize which particular channel of communication we are going to make use of, right? Now let us talk about the various types of communication channels which are available to you. Basically, you have designed your message. Now you also have to decide which particular mode to use to send your message across to your target audience. For this, we will have a communication channel. So which particular communication channel you are going to make use of is what we have to decide here. So what are the different types of channel that we have? We have got the personal channels, right? Personal channels, and then we'll have a second category also, which is known as the non-personal channels. But right now we are restricting our discussion to the personal channels, right? So what happens in a personal channel? Please understand, you interact face to face or telephonically or through mail with the prospective customer. Just a slight diversion. What is the difference between a prospect and a customer? Customer is one who has already bought your products, while prospect is one who is likely to buy your product in future, right? So when you are talking to a prospect, he has never bought your product, but he is likely to buy it in future. So basically, when you are trying to sell to a prospect, you are trying to get him to start buying your product also. So that is the difference between prospect and the customer. And many a times I am also, in the heat of the moment, I am using these words interchangeably, but they probably cannot be used interchangeably. For example, you are a customer of Degree College Pithoragarh because you have already started using the various education services provided by this particular college. However, the students who are yet to join the college, they are prospects, right? So that is the difference between a prospect and a customer. They cannot be used interchangeably, right? Okay. So what are the personal channels? Now we are shifting our focus back on this slide. Here the interaction would be face to face, telephonically or through mail with the prospect, right? So the interaction would be face to face, it could be telephonically or through mail. The whole idea is that there should be no intermediary as such between the prospect or the probable buyer and the sender of the messages, that is the advertiser or the marketer, right? So the marketer as well as the prospective buyer, they are interacting one to one, right? They are having close interaction with each other. They know each other also, and this is not, in this kind of a case, this is not mass communication. It could be either interpersonal communication wherein there is just one buyer and one marketer, and in case there is one marketer and there is a group of buyers, then it could be a group communication, but it would not be media, it would not be mass communication, because both the parties know each other fairly well, right? So there would be an interaction face to face or telephonically or through mail. Now there are different types of personal channels. Now let us have an understanding of what all different types of personal channels are there. One is called the advocate channels. Now who are your advocates? They are basically your salespersons, right? So these are people who have been employed by you to sell your product. So they are going to contact the customer, and then maybe telephonically or face to face or through mail, and then they are going to convince the customer into buying your product, or they are going to advocate your product to the customer. So that is why this kind of a channel is known as advocate channel, right? Then we've got the expert channel. Now what do we mean by expert channels? Please understand. Have you ever read a movie review in a newspaper? So the movie gets released on Friday, and Saturday morning newspaper there is a movie review which appears, right? And many a times, based on what has been the review and what has been the rating given by the reviewer to a particular movie, based on that only you decide whether or not to go watch that particular movie, right? So this is an example of an expert channel. Now they are people who are independent. They do not have anything to do with the marketer, with the advertiser. They are independent people. They are experts, and they might be reviewers. They are independent people. They are not getting paid by the firm. The firm is not paying them. The marketer is not paying them. They are independent people, and they will basically be doing what? They will be making use of their expertise to review the product attributes and to compare it with other competitor products in the market. So that is why these kind of channels are called expert channels, right? Then we have got the social channels also. Now who are the entities involved in these social channels? They could be your friends, family, neighbors and colleagues, and they are ones who have already used your product, and now they are advocating, they are promoting this particular product. They're spreading good word of mouth about your product because they themselves are satisfied with your product, and they are promoting it. They are spreading good word of mouth among their own friends or among their family members, among their neighbors. So many a times it may so happen that before deciding which particular brand of bikes or which particular brand of mobile phones to purchase, you talk to your friends who already have a particular brand of mobile phone, and you ask him about whether he is satisfied and what are the various attributes of that mobile phone. So that friend of yours in this particular example would be a social channel, and if he is satisfied with your product, he is going to naturally give you a favorable review, and naturally based on that review you might go and buy in the market the same brand of mobile headsets. Is this fine? So many a times family members also, many a times neighbors also, you suggest your neighbors, okay, do watch that movie. So basically you are actually a social channel for that particular movie. So you're telling your neighbor, okay, do watch that movie, that's a wonderful movie. Do watch Bharat, wonderful movie. Or do not watch Bharat, very bad movie, rubbish. So this is what social channel is all about. Now if I ask you one question, you have been exposed to advocates. Supposing, let's say you want to buy a car, and then you are getting exposed to the advocate channel, that is, let's say, the salesperson of Maruti. You are also getting exposed to expert channels, let's say the independent reviewers. They review the newly launched automobile, be it the four-wheelers, be it the two-wheelers, and then they present their findings to the general public, and they might be writing a blog. So these could be the expert channels. And then there is a friend of yours who has already bought a car of the same brand. That would be the social channel. So basically you are getting exposed to all three channels. Which one would you trust the most? Don't you think you are going to trust? Which one are you going to trust the most? This one, or this one? You are naturally going to trust the social channels much more than the expert channels, and the expert channels are going to be trusted much more than the advocate channels. Why? Because the advocate channels are getting paid for whatever they are saying. That is not the case with expert channels. And As far as the social channels are concerned, you know them well, you know very well that there is no chance that they would make you take a wrong decision. So you trust them even more than the expert channels. So the level of trust would be the highest in case of social channels and it would be the lowest in case of advocate channels. Is that making sense? Okay. So I was talking about the word of mouth. So what are these social channels? I'm sorry for this. What are these social channels going to do? They are going to spread a good word of mouth, or in many cases, if they're not satisfied, a bad word of mouth. Have you ever read a review by a customer on maybe these e-commerce websites? You want to buy something from the e-commerce website, let's say Flipkart. You go to the website and then you start reading the reviews. Don't you think that is an example of a social channel? Right? So the other customers, fellow customers, they are spreading a good word of mouth. If they are happy and satisfied with the product, they are writing they write glowingly about the product. They talk about the good aspects of the product. So that would be a good word of mouth, and then there could be a negative word of mouth wherein they are not satisfied with the product and then they are sharing their experiences. So basically what is happening actually is a word of mouth is getting spread, right? Is this okay? And this word of mouth can convince the fellow prospects, the prospective buyers, to buy the product. And that is why many a times before deciding which particular brand of any product to buy from the e-commerce website, you go and look at the customer ratings. If the 2 or 3 products that you are considering, they are equal on all the counts, you base your decision on the customer ratings and the customer reviews. Is that making sense? Right. Now that is why you should understand that word of mouth is going to be a very, very important factor. Why? Because word of mouth is basically spread through social channels and people tend to have greater trust in social channels, and that is why word of mouth is very, very important. And how can you have a good word of mouth going about for your product or for your service or for whatever you are trying to sell to the public? How can you make a good word of mouth? How can you make good use of this word of mouth publicity? How can you make your satisfied customers talk more and more about you in glowing terms? And how can you ensure that the customers who are not satisfied with your product, they do not spread a bad word of mouth? So for them, we have got some tips. First, you need to convince the influential individuals. So influential individuals are those who have a great influence on the group to which they belong, on the members of the group to which they belong. So these people are very, very influential. For example, if it is a joint family, many a times the male head of the family could be the most influential individual, right? And if you somehow convince him that your product is good, then he would spread a good word of mouth about your product, and the other people in the family may also want to buy your product. Again, if you're going to a village, the Gram Pradhan could be the influential individual there. It could be the man who is taking care of the local post office branch, or who is taking care of a local bank branch. That person could be the most influential individual in the area. If you somehow convince that particular individual about the merits of your product, then that particular individual is going to spread a good word of mouth about your product. And that is one tool that was made use of by Asian Paints. Asian Paints did what? They whitewashed the house of the Gram Pradhan in some of the villages. And later on, for free, and they did it for free, and when the Gram Pradhans were very satisfied with this work, these Gram Pradhans they started promoting, they started talking in glowing terms about Asian Paints to their fellow inhabitants, to the other inhabitants of the villages, and the sales in that particular village, in those group of villages, increased. So this was one method which was made use of by Asian Paints. Again, create opinion leaders, people who are opinion leaders. See, opinion leaders could be different people in different situations. For example, if in a village, again, you are going and you are, let's say you reside in a village and you want to know as to which particular stream should I follow after graduation. Should I go for MBA? Should I go for MCOM, for example? Should I start preparing for some competitive exam. Don't you think if you are residing in a village, you would want to probably talk to the local government school teacher there, because you feel that he is the most educated and probably is the best person to guide you. In this particular example, this individual, this local government school teacher is the opinion leader. So you do what? You go and convince as a marketer, what is your job then? You find out who these opinion leaders are and then convince them. Once they are convinced, then they are going to convince the other people, right? So this is called the opinion leader approach. I'll give an example of how it was used by the pulse polio immunization program here in India. Many a times, this was the experience of this particular program when the doctors and the paramedical staff went to villages to immunize the children against polio. Many of the parents were wary of this kind of an immunization drive. They felt that this is not going to have an impact. So what did the government do? The government talked to the religious leaders. For example, if there is a temple, they talk to the priest, head priest. If it's a masjid there, they talk to the head imam. And then they try to convince that this immunization drive is for the benefit of their own children. Once these people, these religious heads were convinced, they also convinced the fellow village inhabitants. And this way, the polio immunization drive could be a success. So this is how you can use opinion leaders to sell your products, right? Now please understand one more thing. Opinion leaders are category specific. Please understand. I'm repeating the statement. Opinion leaders are category specific. Now what do we mean by this? This means that an opinion leader in a particular product category, let's say soaps, or let's say bikes, this is a particular product category. Mobile handsets, a different product category. Edible items is a different product category, right? And opinion leaders in all the product categories may be different individuals. For example, take example of your own family. If the family has to make a decision as to which particular brand of spices, masale have to be brought, who do you think is the opinion leader? Don't you think most of the time it would be your mother, because she has been spending most of her time in the kitchen? On the other hand, if it has to be decided as to which particular brand of TV has to be purchased, or let's say which particular brand of mobile handset is to be purchased, I believe that in most of your cases, the mothers would probably not be the opinion leaders. It could probably be the male members of the family. This is what probably might be happening. So in this case, as far as the mobile handsets were concerned, the opinion leaders were the male members. It could be your father, it could be the brother. And in case the spices or the brand of spices have to be decided, the opinion leaders are the female members of the household. In case you have to decide which particular brand of cosmetics has to be brought, many a times the opinion leaders would be the female members of the household. So opinion leaders are category specific. Do remember this. Again, how can you stimulate this word of mouth? How can you ensure there's a lot of spread of this word of mouth? You can request your satisfied customers for recommendation. So you request them to recommend your products to other. In fact, many a times Reader's Digest does this. They come up with a scheme wherein if you are a regular subscriber of Reader's Digest and you are sending across the name of 10 more possible subscribers to Reader's Digest, Reader's Digest will give you some kind of a loyalty award, right? So you can build in these kind of loyalty awards, these kind of incentives for those customers, those satisfied customers who are recommending your product, your service to others also. So this is one more thing that you can do. And in fact, you can start electronic online forums so that the customers who are satisfied, they can exchange their views, they can provide customer ratings to various products of yours, various services of yours. And we have discussed one example. We have talked about how Amazon does this or how Flipkart does this. Therein you see a particular functionality wherein if you are a satisfied customer, you can provide them feedback and you can also do the customer rating for that particular product. So this is what is going to convince the other customers, other prospective buyers. So you can start that. And one thing that goes without saying is the good word of mouth can be really productive. It can do wonders for your sales. On the other hand, the negative, the bad word of mouth can also lead to a big damage also, and that is why you also have to ensure that there is no negative word of mouth spreading about your product or service. And how can you do that? You can start off some kind of a complaint and suggestion scheme, wherein the customers who are not very satisfied, they can lodge a complaint with you, and then they are probably given a replacement. So this kind of a scheme, which also has inbuilt prompt customer grievance redressal mechanism, can be made use of. Now let's talk about the non-personal channels. What do we mean by the non-personal channels? So again, there would be no face-to-face interaction here. We are not talking about group or interpersonal communication. Here we are going to talk about the mass communication. I have discussed this term earlier also. Mass communication is when the sender does not know who all, individually he does not know each and every single member of the target audience personally. So it does not know them personally. So that is what mass communication is. So for example, right now I am trying to deliver a lecture, but this is a group communication because I know each one of you. On the other hand, if I make it a YouTube channel which is meant for general public, I would not know who all are coming and who all are visiting my YouTube channel and who all are subscribing to it. In that particular case, it would be mass communication, a non-personal channel. So mass media we are going to discuss all these media types, be it print media, we've got newspaper, magazines, broadcast media, radio and television, network media. Many a times we make use of telephone and mobile handsets, mobile advertising you might have seen. Then we have got display media, which includes the billboards on the roadsides and the signs and the posters, right? And then we've got the electronic media, which includes the websites and the compact disc CDs, right? So they are also used to promote the product. So these could be the communication channel that you might want to use. The mass media, you might want to communicate to the target audience using the atmosphere that you have in your stores, that you have in your retail stores or discount stores, or that you have in your service outlet. Is this fine? For example, and that is why atmosphere is also known as packaged environment. If you go to, for example, have you ever been to a restaurant, a good restaurant like, let's say, Meghna or Satkar? Let's talk about Meghna. And have you ever been to a smaller restaurant being run by, in a very small place, these dhabas? What is the difference that you see? Where do you find wonderful, comfortable seating? You would find it in maybe restaurants like Meghna, for example. Meghna is trying to project a different image, and that is why they have spent some money on providing you those comfortable and comfortable environment. Those comfortable seating arrangement is there, and you might see some artwork. You might see some plants also being displayed there. On the other hand, if you go to a dhaba, you might not see that kind of environment. So they both are projecting different images, right? So these atmospheres can also be made use of to communicate something to the target audience. For example, if you are on a date, which of the two entities which we have discussed here, the dhaba and the Meghna restaurant, where would you want to take your date? You would certainly want to take your date to a Meghna. On the other hand, if you are partying with your friends, let's say you are casual friends, and let's say you are intimate friends and you are partying with your friends, and naturally you do it almost on a daily basis after the classes here, probably you would be going to the dhaba. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is, you have done this, you have made the decision because the atmosphere was communicating different things. The Meghna atmosphere was communicating that it is probably a premium kind of a service. On the other hand, the dhaba atmosphere was probably communicating to you that it was basically a value for money kind of a service. And that is why you chose a dhaba when you were taking your friends along, and you went for a once in a while date to Meghna restaurant, right? Now, if you visit a hotel, you would find artwork in the hotel lobby. So you would find pictures, famous, pictures or their copies being displayed on the walls. Why do they do that? They're trying to project a premium image, right? So this is an example of how our atmosphere can also communicate a lot about your brand. If you go to, for example, if you go to the Vishal Mega Mart, or if you go to the Big Bazaar, you would find that the atmosphere that they've created there, that is also communicating something. This is fine. Then apart from that, you can also make use of events to communicate to the target audience. This is another thing which can be made use of. This is an example of non-personal channel. Events can be made use of. What kind of events? For example, you can have a look here. News conference is going on, and this player is responding to queries by the various correspondents. So this news conference is going on. It could be grand openings. So for example, if you're launching a new product in the market, it could be a grand opening that you can plan. If it is premium product, naturally you're not going to launch it on a roadside. You would launch it in a very big ceremony with lots of models around. So that is what you are trying to communicate to your target audience, that okay, we are a premium product, right? Likewise, through your sponsorships also, you can communicate to the target audience as to what kind of products you are selling, what kind of services you are selling, what attributes does your product and services have. Is this making sense? So you can have a look here, news conferences. And for example, in this particular news conference, this is the marketer. You are seeing the PepsiCo logo or the LG logo. Now you can understand, and this is some kind of a conference which is going on after a sports event. So you can probably understand that they are probably trying to target which kind of audience? The young people who are interested in these kind of sporting activities. Have a look at this, MRF tires, right? Have you seen the close-up Antakshari? So Antakshari, an event and a program which was being telecasted on television, that was being sponsored by Close-Up. So what is the kind of image that Close-Up is trying to project? This is fine. So you have to choose your communication channels very, very carefully. You can also make use of more than one channel at a particular point of time. So it may so happen that you are making use of both personal channels and non-personal channels. For example, you can make use of Facebook, and you can make your prospective buyers, prospects, see your ad through Facebook by placing your ads in the Facebook. So that would be a use of mass media. On the other hand, you might also want to bank on the good reviews for your products given to you by your satisfied customers. So that would be making use of the social channel. So at one point of time, you can also make use of more than one channel. This is fine. So the time limit that we have set for ourselves, so I think I would not want to overshoot that time limit. So I would be continuing the discussion from here only in the next session that we'll have in the next, as per the schedule, on the next day. And from now onwards, I'll ensure that I'll keep all my videos short, and it would not probably be stretching beyond 35 minutes. However, there would be slight changes in the lecture plan because of this, and which I'll be sharing with you in due course of time. So thank you very much for your time. Do keep reading. Very soon we are going to have a test. Thank you very much.